If you prefer to watch this video quietly, turn the sound down and the subtitles on. My regular viewers will know that in my last video I showed you how to make paper earrings. If you want to watch that video first, there will be a link somewhere above on the right hand side of the screen. If you're someone who makes handmade earrings, then you might be interested in this video because I show you how you can make beautiful hand-painted cards that you can display your earrings on. These are just a few examples of what you can expect to paint after you've watched this video. And I just want to say, with these painted cards, don't stress too much over what you're doing. Just have fun with it, because further along in the video I'm going to show you what you can do with any cards that are too fussy to be earring display cards. So just enjoy the process, have fun, and then if any of the cards turn out to be no good for earring display cards, I will be showing you the perfect use for them. The paints I used in this video were these watercolour inks. I also used some acrylic paints and thick watercolour paint and gouache in tubes. Also used these Caran d'Ache water-soluble crayons, and I used these pre-cut 2.5 by 3.5 inch art cards. Oh yeah, and midway through filming I also got these bigger art trading cards. These are approximately 3 by 4 inches. And so you will see me using some of these as well. And these actually fit the 3 by 4 cellophane bags much better. You can see these cards are a much better fit for the cellophane bags. So this is the last lot that I did, and you can see that the smaller cards are a bit lost in that bag. You could still use the smaller cards in these 3 by 4 bags. They look okay, it's just the bigger cards look better. And I'm using a small jelly plate here to put my paint on. You will also need a roller, also called a brayer, for applying the paint. And you can also have a few sheets of plain white paper around. It's handy for cleaning off your roller. If you do art journaling, hang on to all your roller clean off papers, because you can use them in your art journaling, and that way you don't waste any paint or any paper. You'll also need some cling film and something to spray a fine mist of water with. I'm just using this old glass bottle that's got quite a fine spray mister on there. And it's a good idea to either wear rubber gloves or have a damp cloth or some baby wipes handy to clean up. It's also good to work on a glass chopping board like these two that I use. And you might want to have a few tools for making marks in the paint. These are just a few of the things that I used. So with all that said, let's do some painting. I already had a dry thin layer of metallic gold on the jelly plate because I didn't edit this in sequence. And I left the gold on there when I was doing this because I wanted you to see how when you put wet paint on top of dry paint, the dry paint gets picked up in patches. So you can see that I'm putting this turquoise colour over the top of the dry gold, and too much came out on the second squirt. Yeah, that's just a bit too much. So I just lifted some of it off with a palette knife. I could edit these things out, but it's best that you see what can happen. Less is more when it comes to paint on the gel plate. The next thing is you just roll out the paint to a thin layer over the dry gold paint in this case. Now I could have left that excess paint there that you see on the clean off paper. I could have left that and then just scraped it back onto the gel plate when needed, but I decided to just roll it all out and use this as art journal paper. Whichever way you look at it, it's not going to get wasted, so it's all good. Next, you take one of your cards, in this case I'm using the 3 inch by 4 inch, and press it down really well. And because of the dry paint underneath, leave it for a minute before you pull it up. You can see how easily the dry paint underneath comes up once you've put fresh paint over the top. So now I've just put a very tiny amount of paint on there to replenish. This is why I'm saying I could have left the excess paint on the clean off paper, and I could have just put a teeny bit of that on there, but it doesn't matter. And I like to build my cards up in layers, so I'm going to use this paint comb just to make some marks in that blue paint. It just adds a bit of visual texture to the cards. And I'm going back in there to pick up more paint to cover in more of the white areas. I need to add some more paint because it's got a bit dry. And I keep on going back in there to pick up more paint until I'm happy with the coverage. And I'm happy with that, so I'm going to go in with a fresh card and pick up what's left. It's great because it all gets very abstract at this stage. Well, the whole thing is abstract, of course, but it gets even more so when you're picking up the paint remnants. And then you just keep going back in there, adding more paint, just playing until you're happy with what you've got. And if you're not picking up much, you need to put some fresh paint down. Not much, just a bit. Yeah, sorry, I did replenish the paint here, but I forgot to turn the camera on. I could leave it there, or I could go back in and cover what small white patches are left. So I've picked up some more of that dried gold paint from underneath, which is brilliant. And I decided to go back in again to see what else I could pick up. And this time I'm quite happy with how it looks. So now I'm going to let you watch with some music. If you have any questions about what you see, just ask me in the comments below. This is just a foam star that I got in a set of about 6 different shapes, and I think they came from Sainsbury's Home Base from the decorating department. You can see that I'm still picking up that dried metallic gold that was on the plate to begin with. Now these two here are brilliant for building layers on, or if you wanted to be really arty, you could just leave them as they are. See how you get the lovely ghost prints of images that were still on the gel plate? I'm just spraying a fine water mist onto the jelly plate, and this is how jelly printing is. One thing leads to another, and I don't like to waste paint, so I do look for ways to use all the paint that is still on the plate. So just a quick recap here of what I've done so far, and then I'm going to show you some quick clips of how to make some plainer cards in more neutral light colours. So that's the first batch, and here we go into the second batch. If you have any questions, then do ask me in the comments. This was another one that I pulled from that same paint, but I forgot to turn the camera on again. You can't see this one very well on camera, but this is a very understated one, but it would make a really beautiful display card. These light coloured cards do end up coming out really pale on camera, but in reality they do make absolutely beautiful cards for earrings. Now this one I'm doing because I actually want to pull an A4 print that I can use for my art journal, and what I want to do is use the remnants of paint that will be left behind on the jelly plate and will show up on my earring cards. So this print will just go into my stash of papers that I use for art journaling. So I'm adding another layer of fresh paint on top of these the blue remnants from that last pull, and this is so that I can try and pull up those lovely broken circles left on there. I'm hoping it will give a very subtle effect. It takes a while, and I do, in a moment, I'm going to add some more paint, but again I forgot to turn the camera on, so you'll suddenly see some kind of pinky coloured paint on here that you didn't see me apply. Yeah, there you go, you didn't see me do that. But having that slightly darker colour is going to help see those ghost images underneath in the blue. And this is exactly what I wanted. You get this lovely abstract effect building up, but it's a very vague and soft effect. Yeah, I love these ones. This is what I had in my mind. It's always lovely at the end of a long jelly plate session when you haven't cleaned your plate and you've got all these wonderful remnants of paint left from the whole session. And this is a card from earlier that I'm now going to put a few more layers on. And I really love the way this one turned out. I love the mistiness of it. And now I'm going in there with this one card and I'm going all over the plate and I'm picking up whatever remnants of paint I can before I start a new session. So I'm going to move on now to show you how I use watercolours on the jelly plate. I use the watercolour straight out of the tube. I spritz the jelly plate with a bit of water and then I just squeeze the watercolour straight from the tube onto the jelly plate. Basically it's all the same techniques that you saw me use with acrylic, it's just that watercolour reacts a bit differently. You can see a lot of resistance on the gel plate here, so as I roll over it where the water is, you can see it all separates and you get this lovely lacy effect. So obviously you're going to get slightly different effects on your cards. So yeah, it's just the same technique, different effect really. So just doing a quick clean-up of the plate here. I do use all of these papers, all these clean-up papers, I use them in my art journals and I create abstract montages with them. I tear them up, cut them up, whatever, and they're great for making abstract designs. Because once they're in your art journal you can draw on top of them with graphite or whatever you want really. And I'm just seeing what paint I can pick up with another clean card here. I don't like to waste any paint that's left on the gel pad. And actually the paint remnants that are left on the pad can make some really lovely designs. These scraps of paint that are left are just brilliant, I love them. Because imagine trying to paint that with a brush. So that's it for using acrylic paints and watercolour paints in tubes, and we're now going to move on to watercolour inks. So I'm just using plain water to spritz the jelly plate, and then I'm sticking cling film to the jelly plate purely to get texture and get creases for the watercolour ink to run down. This is not how you normally use a jelly plate, this is just something that I do. So this is the watercolour ink, and you can see I'm just dropping it onto the cling film. And because the watercolour ink resists the cling film, you get this lovely beading and the ink runs down into the creases, and so you get these lovely abstract patterns form. It's just a question of experimenting and seeing what you get, and as you see from what I do, I build layers on top of layers. So once you've got your first base image, you can always put more on top, in either in the same colour or in different colours. Once you get going with trying out these techniques, you'll find that you just naturally figure out your own stuff to do. And it is a really relaxing way to play with paint because you're not concentrating on making anything perfect. You don't have to be an artist. This is such a free way to paint. It's brilliant because there's nothing you can do wrong here. So I'm just building up the layers on there, and you can stop anytime you want to. You can leave white on the card, you can cover the whole thing with colour. It's entirely up to you. I'm just showing you the way that I do things, so you can take the techniques and develop them as you want to. And the thing is, nothing you do here is going to be wasted, because even if you decide at the end of a session that some of the cards are far too fussy to be earring display cards, just hold on to them. I scan all mine in and I keep them in my vast library of abstract images, and I use them time and time again in collages, montages, layered digital artwork. There's all kinds of things that you can use these abstract images for if you just keep them in your digital library, ready to print, tear up, use in your art journals, or, as I said, use digitally in digital montages. There's so many uses for these small paintings that you're going to be creating. So this goes way beyond just making earring display cards. So I'm still playing around with cling film here, but this time I've put the watercolour ink underneath the cling film directly on the jelly plate. And you can see here I'm just squishing it around, spreading the ink around, and in a moment I'm going to pull the cling film off and see where the beads of watercolour ink land. It's just all play. We will move on shortly. I'll finish with the watercolour ink and show you how to use the Coranda Ash water soluble crayons. So see that, how lovely that is? Just those puddles of colour. And you never know what you're going to get on the card. And if you're worried about anything coming through the card or the backs getting marks on, don't worry, because you can just, when they've dried, you can just go through the whole thing again and paint the backs. That's what I did with the first lot that I made. This lot I didn't paint the backs because I didn't have time. I wanted to get the video out quickly. But see how lovely that is, just with that blue colour. And I could have left it there. It's okay to have some white patches still left behind. So that's a good display card for a set of earrings, and that's just one colour done in layers. I'm going to move on now to the water soluble crayons. So here I'm using the Aquarelle Neocolor 2 by Coranda Ash, and these are water soluble. So all I did was spray water onto the gel plate and then scribble around with the blue crayon, and this was the effect that I got. I really love these crayons. They are quite expensive, but they're well worth the money. The pigment is really rich and they're so versatile. So I'm just adding a darker blue in here, just trying it out on the corner to see what it looks like. This is what's so good about these crayons. They blend really well. So you get this lovely abstract effect with really not that much effort. So you don't have to be a brilliant artist. You just really need the desire to play around, almost in a well, not almost, it is a very childlike way. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. The question of what is art can be a very snobbish thing. And because of that, a lot of people just won't have a go because they think they can't paint. And that makes me really sad, because I think it stops many people from just having a go. And really, who cares if you make a mess? Playing with art materials is not just for those who can paint. It's for everyone to play with. I think if more of us felt free to express ourselves regardless of the outcome, I think in the end we would all become more proficient artists. And the journey to get there is such good fun. And even if you never become a proficient artist as such, what does it matter if you've enjoyed the process? So I think we should all carry on enjoying the process and not worry about the end results. I think to play around with paint like a child It's probably one of the best things that we can do for our mental health, because it's almost, well for me anyway, it's like meditation, and I'm not really bothered about the end result. So if you're watching this and you're one of those people that says you're not creative, just have a go. I think you'll be surprised at what you produce and how much fun it's going to be. And if you're trying to sell your earrings at, say, a craft fair, you're going to get the kind of people at those fairs that appreciate the much freer, arty, abstract look. So these are perfect for that. I think these cards that I've done with the coriander ash crayons are my favourite. They're so rich and creamy because they're highly pigmented, and they just kind of melt with the water. They're brilliant. If you're going to have a go at this and you're only going to use one medium, I would really recommend using these crayons, even though they are expensive, because you get great results quickly. So great for confidence boosting. And anyway, the cheaper art supplies don't really last as long, so I'm just going to stay quiet now for a couple of minutes and let you just watch. I'll just show you one more with these crayons and then we'll move on to the gouache. These are the tubes of gouache that I'm using, and I use them much the same way as I use the watercolouring tubes. There is a big difference between acrylic paint and gouache paint. Basically, gouache paint has got more of a matte finish, and also the pigments are bound together with gum arabic rather than the plastic binders found in acrylic paint. And gum arabic is a kind of a tree sap, so I'm not sure. It sounds to me as if it may be more environmentally friendly, I don't know. But it has got an extremely matte finish. It's very different to the finish of watercolour or acrylic. It's more like the finish that you get with the coriander ash water-soluble crayons. But to be honest, gouache has got a charm all of its own. It's not going to be to everyone's liking, but I quite enjoyed using it. And because this method is the same as you've already seen me use with watercolour tubes and acrylics and water-soluble crayons, I'm actually going to cut out a lot of what I did here because otherwise this video is going to be really long. And if you're concerned that some of your cards are looking a bit too plain or even drab, then you can take some metallic gold acrylic paint, as you're going to see me do here, and you can put some touches of shiny gold and it will just lift that drabness. So you see, you don't need much, just a few touches here and there. These are just a few of the cards that I did with the gouache. You can see that it is a very different look, an extremely matte look, and you use exactly the same methods that you saw me use for the acrylics, watercolours and water soluble crayons. And I'm just going to give you a very brief overview here of me using some of the tools to carve marks into the paint. It's just a very quick look to give you some ideas that you might like to experiment with and find your own marks and ways of using the tools. Okay, so when you've got all this paint left on your pad at the end of the session, before you go to clean up, just take some blank cards and pick up most of what is left of the paint on the gel pad, and you get some lovely abstracted designs that you can use as earring backing cards or keep in your stash to make to scan and make scrapbook paper. Anything that you can think of so that you don't actually waste this paint that's left. So at the end of the painting session, not all of your painted cards are going to be suitable to be earring display cards. The plainer ones are going to be just fine, but the really busy ones like this run the risk of upstaging the earrings, and we don't want that. So while these plainer ones are absolutely fine, we do need to find another use for the very abstract busy ones. So these are the ones that I'm talking about, the ones that are too overpowering to display earrings on. And although these cards may not make brilliant earring display cards, they do, however, make fantastic paper earrings. I've just quickly punched out a few examples so you can see what I mean. They look completely different when you just punch certain areas out. So don't despair if you look at your finished cards and think that you don't like them, because there is a high chance that you can make some unique earrings from them. I mean, obviously I haven't turned these ones into earrings yet, but by the time you glaze them and get the findings on, you will get a lovely finished product. And there you see the pile of cards that I cut these earrings from. And they are very easy to cut if you use these shaped punchers like you see here. And another thing that I do with my small painted cards is scan them into my computer, and then I print them off like this to make scrapbooking paper, and I leave them in my scrap paper stash and I tear them up to use in my art journals. So that's a couple of extra ideas there. Okay, so now it's time for me to talk to you about the free printables that go with this tutorial. This time I've chosen 12 of the many cards that I printed in this session, and I have scanned them all into my computer and I have put them all on an A4 sheet, this one here, so you can print off that A4 sheet and it's got an images on there of each of the 12 cards. I've also got these 3 printable sheets. Each one has got 4 of the 12 designs on, made bigger. So you get those 4 free printables, and also I have taken each of the cards that I chose, the 12 cards, and they're also in the folder as individual JPEG files. I've also done them as individual PDF files. So that does give you a range of sizes and formats to play with, and you can use these to print off and tear up or cut up to use in your art journals, or you could use them to make paper earrings with if you want to. You know, if you don't fancy doing your own designs, you are very welcome to use these free printables. So that's it. That's the free printables that I have for you. To get them, you need to go over to www.funcraftstodoathome.com. You don't have to pay for these. They are completely free. All my printables are free. They always have been and they always will be. For more about my free printables and how to get them, make sure that you read the blog post that goes with this video. There is a link on the end screen at the end of this video that will take you to my website. It's really important to read that so that you can find out how to download my free printables safely using the correct link to get to my Google Drive where all my free printables are stored. If you have made it this far, thank you very much. I really appreciate you watching. I hope you enjoyed the session and you're going to get busy making your own earring card, and you can watch my previous video to find out how to make paper earrings if you are unsure. If you enjoyed this video, I would love to have you as a subscriber on my channel, and comments are always welcome. Thanks again everyone, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.